The Sonic Show's Opinion Zone, Act 3.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Sonic Show and our new Opinion Zone for the new year. This is Tom speaking, I'll be the host today, and we have a variety of lovely guests to have along with us. But first we'll start with our special guest star. Would you like to please introduce yourself?
Good evening everyone, I am Titanscreed aka Pete Nethercoat. I'm sure that's meant to be the other way around, but there we go. You may have seen me on such projects as my YouTube channel or various other bits and pieces I've been on around the internet. Hi.
Welcome, we are glad to have you here. Now we shall go to our classic all-star cast, starting off with...
Hello, I'm Classic AAUK. I'm not as fast as the modern AAUK, but I'm much more beloved.
Indeed you are. Indeed you are. And who else do we have?
Hello, I am OVA Tanner. I'm actually a mole and wear a cowboy hat for no reason.
Oh dear. Thank you, Tanner. And finally, who is our last guest?
Hello, I am Green Eyes era JonoD. I come from the Dreamcast era, although I don't really. I make films and stuff.
Oh, this is classic.
I think you find that Jono was actually going to be Saturn Jono, but then they axed it and reworked him for the Dreamcast.
Yes.
And now there's shades of it in Jono Lost World.
Yeah.
Yes.
But nobody who actually made the new Jono Lost World actually has an idea about the previous version of Jono. Okay, we need to make that absolutely clear.
It's all a mystery. Now, for this episode of Opinion Zone, Discussion Time, whatever we like to call it, we're going to be covering a particular area of the Sonic and Sega franchise, which is the All-Star range, from where it's come and where we want to see it go. So, to start off, obviously, everyone that's here, you're aware of the All-Star range, am I right?
Yep.
Yes.
So to make that clear for people, that's things like All-Stars Racing Transform, the original All-Stars Racing, Superstars Tennis, all that kind of stuff.
And the
Indeed.
iToy game, which
iToy game, which I loved.
It was a good game back in the day. I do miss the iToy. When webcams were the thing. Oh. But yeah, pretty much as a marketing ploy, having a compilation of Sega's greatest or most iconic characters in one bundle would, well, in my eyes, I mean, I'm sure many of you can agree, is pretty much a great idea to make a sell. Am I right?
Sega's biggest strength has always been its very rich history. Now, it's one of those things that traditionally on their own, those characters, and this is probably something we'll touch on later on, those characters tend not to make any money. But together, with a big fat Sonic on the front, they do very well. But it is that rich variety of characters which really nobody else, apart from Nintendo, has.
I think the biggest point more than ever is that we are realistically living in what I like to dub every now and again as the age of nostalgia, whereas people around myself and Kevin's age who obviously grew up with the older consoles and grew up with all of these classic characters will see everything, whereas a newer generation, like some of you younger folk there, you whippersnappers on my bloody lawn.
Stop stealing our apples!
Yes, indeed.
I think all of us here are of that age where we've grown up from the old school.
Oh,
from
that's
back
not me.
No. Yeah.
No.
Everyone minus you, Tanner. You're Canadian, it's understandable.
It's why it's Sonic and Sega All-Stars, whereas if you look, as an example, to PlayStation, it's PlayStation All-Stars instead of just one iconic character. Sonic and All-Stars is obviously because Sonic is, in the West, more of an iconic character to that appeals as the fan base in general. People are more likely to buy a game based on Sonic's name than if they just turned around and called it Sega All-Stars.
Although they did sort of try that with the original game, Sega Superstars, which was the iToy game.
What the same wasn't tennis called Sega Superstars Tennis, or was it Sonic and Sega Superstars?
It was
Sega
Sega.
Superstars Tennis.
Yeah.
Now, I'd be kind of interested to see the sales of that versus All Star Racing.
I can tell you that Sega Superstars Tennis did surprisingly well when you consider what it was. I can't tell you the exact figures from memory, and I wouldn't be able to tell you them anyway. But Sega Superstars Tennis did do well, because if it didn't do well enough, then it's simply there wouldn't have been another in the range. But It was strange that they made that decision to go away from the Superstars name, because they weren't happy. They didn't think it was strong enough, because they didn't think it emphasized Sonic enough.
Interesting.
It's always been that the Sonic as a brand is stronger than the actual company as a brand.
Well, yeah, as I said, in the West at least. I mean, in Japan, I think it's a completely different thing. There are stronger Sega names in Japan.
Indeed.
So.
But that's why you actually had, when the rebranding happened, the very, very, very long name of Sonic and Sega All Stars Racing. Because I think this story was told before on a radio show somewhere, so I have no problem in mentioning it again. But there was basically a big argument between all sides of Sega as to what the name would be. And SOA wanted one thing, SOE wanted another thing, Sega of America, Sega of Europe, and Sega of Japan, who weren't that fussed about having the game at all, had their preference too. And no side was willing to actually make any kind of compromise on it. Usually in something like this, obviously one side will eventually back down and go, well, okay. This time, both sides pretty much drew battles and went, no, it's going to be this. And I can't remember what Sega America was. Sega America probably had more Sonic-based, and it was a bit less in SOE. But then it came to a point where they needed to announce the damn thing. And they still didn't have a title. So it ended up being that the actual big boss in Sega Japan, chairman of Sega, came in and just sort of went, almost as like the really fed up dad who's been aroused from reading his newspaper and has to go and sort of sort out the kids. Had to come in and just sort of just like stop fighting! Stop fighting! Fine, you know what it's going to be? It's going to be this. And he was him who actually gave the title. And it was like, look, it's going to be this. That's it. You had your chance to agree on the title. It's going to be this now. And nobody was happy with it. and then everyone, it really was just both. It was like SOE and SOA went both to their rooms like sulking, like I hate you. But yeah, no, that's why that's what happened with the rebranding. But that's an old story. But I don't think it's one that anyone really took much notice of.
So obviously, with the origins of it being like from the iToy, and obviously it had 12 games. Am I correct in saying this? No,
okay, I have grabbed a copy of the game from my shelf, which is a nice one. Yes, so you had 12 Superstar games in one. So we had Sonic, Crazy Taxi, Knight, Virtual Fighter, Samba de Amigo, Super Monkey Ball, I think it's Monkey Ball Jr. actually, House of the Dead, Space Channel 5, Choo Choo Rocket, Billy Hatcher, Puyo Pop Fever, and Virtua Striker.
Whatever happened to Virtua Striker?
It got out replaced by FIFA.
I've never heard of it. Ever.
Virtua Striker was a fantastic little arcade game. And it really was like the proper arcade style of football game. With you've got 3 buttons and a waggly joystick.
Wasn't Virtua Striker a minor evolution of what we had for the Mega Drive games, the World Cup games, and that sort of
pretty
thing?
much. It's pretty much what I remember. But yeah, it was all part of the Virtua series. I mean, it was Virtua Tennis and Virtua Striker are sort of sister titles. But yes, that was it.
Yeah, and obviously...
Sega Superstars is pretty much its own little thing, isn't it? So it's basically you've got a Sonic mini game which is pretty much completely Sonic based. You've got a Knights mini game which is completely Knights based, etc., etc. It's just, I think the only thing each one has in common with each other is its control interface, which of course was the iToy.
Yeah.
But thing is, I suppose this kind of begs the question: apart from, sticking everybody in go-karts and saying around a racetrack, can you bring these characters all together in any other way, really?
They experimented with obviously the Superstars Tennis, which, as Kevin's pointed out earlier, sold better than what most people actually expected, considering
See, I think the
how
reason
kind of
for that
cheesy it is.
there was no Mario Tennis on the Wii. I think that might have been a contributing factor.
I've just read a very interesting fact. Apparently, Sega Superstars Tennis has actually been re-released very, very recently.
Yes, did it go to Classic?
No, it went to Mac OS X, and that happened on the 17th of October of this year.
Ooh, we should have done something big for that. Clearly.
Oh yeah.
People lining up at midnight for that.
But you say but did it come out on Android? Because if it didn't come out on Android,
it probably is not far away. To be perfectly honest, Android seems to be the in thing with all the kids.
Going on from Superstars Tennis, we went forward to a couple of years, actually, to All Stars Racing, where the title actually changed from Superstars to All Stars.
All Stars Racing was interesting because I believe it's one of the only games which actually saw a release in arcades, because I actually was in the Trocadero and I actually saw a Sonic and Sega All Stars Racing arcade cabinet.
Indeed, that is true. I used to go there as well, and that was one of the few things Sonic related to actually get re-released onto arcades.
Yeah, it was an interesting situation because this is another one of those old work stories. But I kind of informed Sega Europe that the game was being worked on for arcades, and they didn't know. I just happened to see one of the community guys actually who works with Sumo and is up in Sheffield now working for them, and I saw him where I used to live. He was catching a train on my station. He just so happened to swap there and recognise me. I didn't quite recognise him, but he seemed to know who the hell I was and was quite happy to talk about work things. So that's fine by me. And he said, "Oh yeah, no, we're working on this at the moment, and we're getting a cabinet together, and it's looking really good." I was like, "Oh okay." Went and asked the brand people who's been working on the game. "Hey, did you know about that?" No. But it was one of these things. It was a really nice version of the game, and it was a little bit strange to see Sega actually putting development, as you were saying, into an arcade game when it was. I mean, everyone sort of kind of thinks of as arcade as dead, apart from the stuff that comes out of Japan, really.
Well, the game kind of lends itself quite nicely to an arcade thing, doesn't it?
It goes into that long history of Sega games and Sega racing games. Thinking of Daytona, obviously, is the most obvious example of Sega races that allows multi-person racing. So.
Oh yeah, was Virtua Rally another one, or
Sega Rally was.
Sega Rally.
Sega Rally was. I mean, a lot of people don't realise, and this is another topic for another time, actually, of the amount of things that Sega actually make for arcades. Sega put out for arcades, which are things you wouldn't really expect them to. I mean, I found out the other day that a whole bunch of pinball tables, which I thought were really classic back in the day, were all made by Sega.
Yeah, I know. They made great ones like Apollo 13, and they also made Twister.
A lot of the movie franchise time ones that they made.
Yeah,
that's right.
They made a lot of the Star Wars Speed Racer ones.
Sega.
They
made, so all those very big brands as well. I'm pretty certain they made one or two of the Batman movie ones as well. So all of that. But yeah, it did lend itself very well. And I think they put in a different mode as well in that, although there was some extra button or something that was different.
So my
I'm
curiosity got the best of me, and I went and checked out the sales for All Stars Racing and Superstars Tennis.
Uh-huh.
And basically, All Stars Racing sold 2.98 million. That isn't obviously on downloadable titles. But Tennis sold 5.38 million between 5 platforms.
Yeah, it's multi-format friendly, it's family friendly, and it's very bundle friendly as well. That's one of the things that Sega actually does quite a lot with these type of games, is really try and sell it in for bundle packs with retailers.
I always saw in magazines and flyers, buy a Wii and get 3 free games, and one of the games was always Superstars Tennis. Always.
Yeah, that many sales is kind of staggering.
But going back to what you said about this being like the nostalgia generation, I think that was obviously a big contributing factor, because like in Sega Superstars for the iToy, you had a few franchises, but nothing that was really nostalgia-y other than Knights and maybe Puyo Puyo. But this one, Superstar Tennis, really started to bring in the classic characters. Like, I think that's the first time Alex Kidd has ever been in 3D. If I'm
in tennis, yes. So it was the first time Alex Kidd had been brought back since, well, it would have been Sega Gaga.
Yeah, it's like, that's
Sega
pretty big.
Old school.
I think that was a factor of it, and then that extended to racing and Racing Transformed.
That brings on another thing about, characters which may not have been used. It seems that Sega almost seems to have a bit of a phobia of using things like Streets of Rage in favor of Virtua Fighter, which, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't have as much of a following.
It does in Japan.
Yeah.
It's still one of the franchises that's a crown jewel and active.
Yeah, you've also got to remember that they've still got to reach out for usages to original creators of the characters. So if they don't actually have the rights, they can't use the characters. Now, this hasn't stopped people at Sumo, and I know this for a fact, talking to some of the guys regarding Transformed, that they do loads of extra models and bits and pieces that don't actually end up being used for the game because they don't have either the actual authorization from Sega or a go-ahead from the copyright holder that isn't Sega that has the actual push for the character.
So they'll go ahead and make it on the off chance that they'll be given a green light.
They'll need to make something in order to prove how good it would look. Whereas Virtual Fighter is, of course, in-house. It's a Sega Studio-based product.
It's quite interesting because, I mean, without trying to skip too far ahead, I mean, everybody remembers the big uproar regarding all the PC versions of like Companies of Heroes stuff and the Team Fortress stuff and various other bits and pieces. Now, I know for a fact that those weren't in pre-development and weren't sitting there. Sega went to them and said, "Hey, we want this done," because obviously advertising in a big name PC game that they're probably selling without having to look up the numbers for sales. But it's cross advertising, and they just went to it, and Sumo, Sega pays the bills at the end of the day. They're footing the bill for the character to be made, and it gets made.
All of those, as you said, the Company of Heroes, General Winter, the Total War Shogun character, and the Football Manager character, all of those make perfect sense within the Steam platform because they've got big sellers, big hard-hitting brands there. And it has been silly. It's ever since the first racing, there was one of the questions was from the first racing when we were working on it was, okay, is there any way we can get Football Manager and Total War into this? Because they're like two of our biggest franchises that sell a hell of a lot. And it seems a bit silly not to at least acknowledge them in some way.
That brings up another thing. Just so we know, All Stars Racing Transform was released last year, so we're talking 2012, I believe it was released, wasn't it?
That's almost 2 years ago. Whoa.
I think the point I'm going to make with that is that they released this back in 2012, and yet you've seen stuff like, Ryo Hazuki's turned up. It looks like they're still sort of supporting it. I don't think I've really seen any other games which have sort of had a continued support like this from a launch so long ago.
I can probably give you a reason why. If you remember the iOS version of Racing 1, just before Transformed came out, I mean about 2-3 weeks before Transformed came out, it went free. And essentially, at that point in time, it was used as a demo, as a lost leader, pretty much, as you would call it in general retail terms, because it was out there then, free, people could play it and get used to the idea of the game. So it was used as a hook to get people aware of the brand and aware of the racing game itself, with the aim, ideally, for them then going to buy Transformed. And it's simply been carried on ever since then with improvements, because this is true of all of the Superstars, All Stars range. They have a very, very long shelf life.
You can say that of any game as long as it has continual updates, though. Any game can have a long shelf life.
Quickly regarding, as we was talking about games that have had so much support over a period of time by having regular updates and new characters added. Technically, the only thing really from this modern era, even though it's not related to Sega at all, is technically PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale. And correct me if I'm wrong, am I right in saying they actually asked Sega for the license for Shadow the Hedgehog to be in PlayStation All Stars?
I wasn't aware of that.
Don't think so.
No, I believe I've seen
I've
got to-
not heard that.
The biggest thing you've got to do when you're comparing it to All Stars Racing Transformed is the only contender that PlayStation All Stars has as a contender in the market is Smash Brothers Brawl. And I'm more likely to play Smash Brothers Brawl than I am PlayStation All Stars. Now, when it comes to All Stars Racing, yes, it's a racing game, but it's very different in what it offers compared to stuff like Forza and Gran Turismo.
Going back to the good reviews thing, I gotta say, All Stars Racing Transformed might be my pick for the best Sonic game of the last console generation, if only for the reason of I have friends who hate Sonic with a passion, if only because of me. And they think it is literally the worst thing that came out of gaming ever. But they love Racing Transformed. And these people who hated everything Sega and were, they were the Call of Duty bros, they loved that game. They loved Racing Transformed. And to bring the Dude Bros with their Mountain Dew and Doritos to a mascot kart racer was pretty big.
Doesn't that come back around to actually reclassifying what a typical Sonic, in air quotation get marked, game is? Because realistically, you can't call Transformed a Sonic game where Sonic has realistically been a platformer.
Well, I mean, they hate the franchise.
Where do you draw the line when you call it a Sonic game instead of just generic kart racer?
I think when his name is in the title.
I think that's a fair argument.
That was probably the most telling thing, really, isn't it? In that, of when the name got shortened to make way for Transformed, the word that disappeared from the title was Sega.
Well,
because Sega has a bit of a stigma to it.
I really think the removing of Sega from the title is completely justified. With Wreck-It Ralph, Danica Patrick, Team Fortress,
that person from Yogscast.
That was
Lewis.
weird. That when I saw that, I'm like, am I having a bad dream? Did I eat too much chicken and fall asleep on the couch? It's like, I couldn't believe that, but sure. It's like
it's obviously that's a slightly. I mean, it's a slightly different situation because it's purely a charity thing.
Yeah, but it again, yeah, it's charity, as Kevin said, and going back to our point again, it's PC gaming. Because I heard a lot of outcry saying, "Oh, why aren't we getting this for a console? You know, people could buy it and still be charity this way." It works differently than if they did it as a PC thing. You know, it's a lot easier to grab charity sales via a PC game than it is.
It's very different as well, especially when you bear in mind a lot of the things that do go on with the console. The console system. I mean, there are all sorts of charges for using the PlayStation Store. Touching back to what Johnny, you started to say, and what I said as well, it's again one of these things that why is there less demos and things on the PlayStation Store than on Xbox Live, and then on Steam? One of the reasons is, I'm not sure you guys actually, some of you guys may not know this, is that Sony actually charges for bandwidth. So every time someone actually downloads your demo, and bearing in mind PlayStation 3 at the time, pretty freaking big, you'd imagine, in terms of size, you get a nice bill through the post from Sony. So if it's a smallish game, you know, it's not going to have as big of a budget necessarily as a lot of others. All of a sudden, if your game actually becomes very successful as a demo, you're completely in the mire for your budget because Sony charge. I don't know if they still do or not, but they certainly did.
There is actually one more thing which I've kind of got to address on the subject of All Stars, which is we've had two sort of All Stars racing games. Does that now mean that from this point on we're now locked into
I think All Stars is a franchise. I think All Stars is realistically a franchise now, and it comes down to we'll definitely see an All Stars game on the new generation. That is going to go without a shadow of a doubt.
Are we locked into sort of just racing games though?
No,
I don't think so. No.
No. I think it was a point I broached with Tim a couple of times at the last couple of SOSs about where it can go there, and it's something that's been raised in interviews with them themselves. They've said anything really. We could see the All Stars version of Mario Strikers for all we know next. I say what they need to do. I think what they do at Sumo is they look at what sort of franchise the characters would fit in. Like, just basically, I mean, it's a really silly thing, but if you look at how Mario has spread their characters, like, just from the one type of, like, gaming franchise out, and look at what they do, you can realistically do something similar with All Stars. You can do All Stars basketball, All Stars football, soccer, whatever you want to call it.
There was the one that was touted.
Yes, I remember, Kev. I remember you had a certain Easter egg regarding that back a while, didn't you?
Well, no. Oh, yeah. There was the Sonic Rex did do an announcement for All Stars Soccer, which then which then there was a fantastic press release which got picked up by people. With this Sega representative talking about how we need much more arse, and how arse is going to revolutionise everything, and it was very suggestive. But there was the thing that was touted and has been said. I think Sol mentioned this in an interview, but it's certainly been mentioned before. Was I guess they could do fighting, and to be honest, personally, I can't see them doing fighting unless there is a new Virtua Fighter. Because if there's a new Virtua Fighter, then that will come out, and then they'll take the engine and then work that to their own advantages. But the thing that was mentioned was, and this is legitimately something that was discussed once, which I may have had to just step in and go, whatever you do, never, ever do this. And that was the prospect of All Stars Paintball.
What?
This was Sol's mentioned this before, okay? But it was one of the things that was mentioned. as a prospect, and a potential thing was All Stars paintball. Somebody had a bright idea to we could do paintball because it's like a shooter, but it's like a family-friendly shooter because they're not being killed. Yeah, you got your brand characters in, but they're not being a shooter and they're not being killed. And shooters are popular, but yeah, that kind of died very quickly when somebody actually, just looked at the idea as a really. It was written down the list by somebody. Yeah, brainstorming probably. Yeah. But no,
I think it's one of those things that would work out being like a good side grade, but not a whole game.
Yeah.
It's something like that you could probably see Nintendo using in one of their mini, Nintendo Land mini games.
Yeah,
Mario Party.
It reeks a mini game as opposed to an actual.
Yeah.
Full-on-fledged game.
I don't know, man. If you put in
gameplay.
like a level creator where you can make entire paintball maps and have like different characters be like different classes, if you will. Like one's got a paint bazooka, one's got like a paint turret. I don't know. I'd play the crap out of that.
You mean almost
you
as if
imagine
someone
Sonic
modded? You mean almost as if someone modded Team Fortress 2?
And then stuck a Master Chief in there, because someone's going to do that sooner or later.
Yeah, basically.
But yeah, it's. I mean, you'll probably a fighter is the most likely direction it would go.
Now, what do you think?
I'd rather it not be a fighter because I'd rather. And I'm not a big sports thing, but I'd rather see a football or a soccer game because then you're tapping into like the FIFA market, and that's quite a big market. But yeah, someone was talking about the upcoming DLC for Rio. I'm just going to say there's a very good chance that character has been made and ready to go since the creation of Transformed, and they've just been waiting for Sega's authorization to go with it, which is probably only come about because the Yogscast had it on there, and nobody knows if they had a test build or an actual build of that. So who actually knows? That could have been pushed to the front because it was accidentally in there.
Now, the real question is regarding that. Obviously, I believe it was Sega that done the poll of top characters that fans want to see in it. And obviously, Ryu was practically top. But other characters like Hatsune Miku and Bayonetta,
let's be fair.
Miku will not be in it.
Miku will most likely be in it with the fact that Project Diva is Westwood in very early 2014.
Oh, that
would not surprise me if Sega went, oh, can we have Hatsune Miku since Project Diva is coming out? And people would just lose their freaking mind.
The Vocaloid fan base is so huge that it would utterly I know people who said that they would buy like 4 copies of the game. Mind you, it's just an exaggeration because it was like a Tumblr post. But still, that would be a character because the fan base is so huge that it would push some sales.
Okay. You guys know that obviously that I did stuff with Transformed, and I created a character list. I mean, this is right back like day one of All-Star Racing Transformed when I was working for Sega. I created a humongous list of things and listed everything out because they actually came to me and asked, hey, what do you want? And there was all sorts of things in there, and some of the stuff came through into the game, some of them didn't. We had something that was essentially what Ages is, but with changes. And one of the things that I said was, when looking at this and debating this with people at Sega and people in the community as well, was that when you look at racing, whether you like it or not, you had the House of the Dead EX characters in there, obviously. Zombio and Zombico, or whatever the names are.
Yeah.
And that was your Japanese character. Now, they didn't really use that so much. It was more of a case of, we can't put G or somebody in there because, adult. But you could always have within that game, or within any of these games, one slot devoted to, we have a Japanese franchise. And the character that I had in this Japanese franchise slot was from the beginning. It was like pretty much like the 4th or 5th character I wrote down was Hatsune Miku. Because you have this humongous back catalogue of games there, and it needs something to introduce it to the wider audience, the character to the wider audience. And for that, the party game, the brand celebration game, is a fantastic bridging device to actually introduce this character to the wider market. And it's exactly what Nintendo did with Smash Brothers and the Fire Emblem characters. Yep. Because nobody knew who these characters were at all.
Well, that's a bit of a stretch, because we had Fire Emblem in the West before that.
Yeah, you had them, but they didn't have that wide stream. They didn't have that mainstream visibility.
No,
they were out there, but it was still specifics.
No, the Fire Emblem characters only came because of Smash Bros. There wasn't a single Fire Emblem game in the West before Smash Brothers Melee.
Yeah, but the point is you can use this as the bridging device to, like I say, introduce. And for somebody like Hatsune Miku, it would be absolutely perfect. You have games ready and waiting in the wings, lots of them, that you could just bring over at any point in time. Heck, it wouldn't necessarily work well for Nintendo necessarily or a 360, but certainly as a PlayStation character maybe. At the very least, it would be perfect.
I mean, with some other characters, like in the original All Stars, like the Bonanza Brothers and stuff like that, were pretty obscure characters, which only appeared in maybe one game or two. But given Sega's history of having having a variety of characters, and they want to at least expand it and show, it seems odd that something like Shenmue, a big seller that Sega knows people would pay to get, have taken so long, and nearly coming up to 2 years now, before giving the green light, saying, "Oh, okay, fair enough. They've waited long enough. You can have him now."
Yeah, but I mean, that could mean several different things. If we think of what Transformed has become in the fact that it's just an advertising juggernaut now. I mean, yes, only the release characters have been on PC instead of console, which I presume Rio will be on. I don't think there's been any announcement towards that yet. But it could mean that there will be a Shenmue announcement soon. I mean, for people that care, they could be looking at it like that. But my biggest disappointment is that they've released this All-Stars Juggernaut Legacy filler thing and not really done anything with the legacy characters outside of the game. Where's our, new game for these legacy characters that you could really just put out there now that you've got this magnificent advertising juggernaut for?
I mean,
or where is the HD port remake of the classic game they were in to at least start that process?
That's true.
Exactly.
I think the closest thing that, we have to that, possibly, because it's not set in stone yet, is like the 3D Classics collection that's on the 3DS, and how they're basically, they're remaking these old, Genesis games, or Mega Drive, in, 3D with some improved graphics and functionality. And, like, for instance, Echo the Dolphin 3D, I don't know, it'd be nice if, to coincide with the release of that, they release Echo. I just really want Echo in that game. I want Echo in Transform so badly. So that's my number one character.
You have an Echo fetish.
No, I just...
Wasn't the whole fact of the dolphins in, like, the Seaside Hill thing, the Echo nod or something? Because you're not exactly going to get Echo driving around in a giant goddamn
it wasn't. It wasn't, and it should have been.
Just have one...
Really surprised.
One dolphin jump in the air really high, and then all of a sudden all this, aquatic life gets sucked up. Just randomly happens on the second lap. No comments on it.
Yeah,
that's all you need.
It's one of those. It's one of those things that there was the opportunity to get a lot more references, and this is the same. This is the same for all of the modern ones, with the exception of Superstars Tennis, which actually had quite a few cameos and lots of little nods and things, I think. But that was because it was much more of a confined space, I guess. But there was the opportunity to have things like that, to have Echo in the game. I mean, what was the big thing from the first racing game that was added in? It was Ristar.
Ristar, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Ristar.
In the Death Egg with the Metal Sonic DLC.
And the reason was given why he wasn't racist was because Ristar from behind looks very boring.
Yeah, he's just a black dot with.
It's a bowling ball with a starfish on the front of it. I mean, it's not really a very.
Which is why he's only the flag waver.
Yeah, but you've got characters like that could be in there that are secondary level characters who could be popping up about the place. You had it and transformed a little bit because you had the House of Dead EX characters in the House of the Dead level with a little ongoing story of them getting married. You had the Billy Hatcher ensemble cast somewhere. I don't think I've ever seen them actually, but they're somewhere.
There's actually, if you look carefully, they were scattered at the very beginning at the Forks section.
They're probably on that stupid, evil bastard winter stage, which I hate with a goddamn passion.
The one with the water section at the very end, and then you've got that insanely sharp turn, which if you not do carefully, you're going to get stuck in the wall, and you're going to lose all your hard work of coming first, and end up dead last.
True facts. I have fallen through the map twice on that level, and only that level have I fallen through the map on, and in the same place.
I've not fallen through the map, but I've had problems with that level entirely where I've somehow landed upside down and been
as
driving
soon as you come out of the water bit, and if you hit it with enough speed, you'll actually fly, and you'll hit a part of the bend on the far end, but you'll go down, you'll hit the tree because you can't go over it, and you just fall straight through the level.
This I have to try now.
Speaking of Billy Hatcher, the character that got axed from the final lineup for Superstars Tennis was actually Rolly Roll. Rolly Roll was there was pretty much the character roster for that was pretty much set from an early time period, and one character was axed, and that was Rolly Roll.
And
again, Sega law with AAUK needs to become a thing.
One more thing. We were talking about the difficulties of getting rights. Do you know which is the most difficult franchise to get
Toe Jam and
actually
Earl
into this game? No. And the Toe Jam and Earl situation is a ridiculous situation, which is more or less, hey, you'll do this because people will say so give us money.
You know what?
And then Sega turned around and went, you what?
I bet it's a bit of a red herring. I bet Sonic is the hardest franchise to get the actual rights for.
Nice.
No.
Is it a franchise that is already as a character already in the All-Star range, or is it some
All-Star range character, which is an absolute nightmare, and I know for a fact is a miracle it ever gets in every single
Shinobi?
Time. No, Shinobi would probably be perfectly fine actually, because again that's actually internal Sega.
But wasn't there a Shinobi game on PS2 that wasn't Sega?
Probably, but that's still you wouldn't do that, and it's still owned by, because obviously there's obviously Sonic Team, but there was Shinobi Team.
Is it by any chance Skies of Arcadia?
No,
Alex Kidd.
No,
I found it very odd.
I'm talking about it's one of the ones that's been in there since the first Sega Superstars, and has been represented in every single game since.
Space Channel 5.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
Space Channel 5, not the music, for characterization thing, because I don't know who the producer is, is very, very strict.
And yet Ulala's in
about
everything.
What's in it. Yeah, but it's one of those things in that it's... I mean, the problem with it is that Ulala is one of your primary female characters that everyone knows. So you kind of feel like you have to have that character in there. But from an actual getting Space Channel 5 in any sense into any of these games has always been an absolute nightmare for Sega.
So it has nothing to do with Space
They got
Michael?
it into that Xbox Dreamcast collection as well, didn't they?
Indeed,
yeah, but that was the original game, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not creating new things. Creating new things is the big problem with Space Channel 5. That's probably one of the reasons there's been so few games.
Yeah, because it was developed by United Games artists under the direction of, pardon me for getting this wrong, if anything, Tetsuya Mizunagi, I think. As a
You
producer,
have Wikipedia open.
Maybe.
This has been said before. I say this in case somebody gets really upset with me, but this has been said before. Okay, but in that it's one of the most tricky aspects of any of the All-Star games is actually Space Channel 5.
And surprisingly enough, even though Space Shuttle Finder has very few games, it's still very
I mean,
popular.
it's had 2 games and one on the Game Boy Advance, was it? Or somewhere?
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
it was released on the Game Boy Advance in 2003, ported by THQ.
It's also had a couple of mobiles as well, I think, or something like that, some other portable mobile device beyond
I mean,
that.
I think what comes down to what we're talking about today in a general point is that DLC for Sega is very difficult to do. You know, I mean, they haven't really broached it properly for quite a very long time. And they're finally doing it correctly.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Well, yeah. I mean, is there the money? Is there the confidence in the brand within the company?
Is there logic in the company to really come across with the idea?
Well, but let's not pull on that thread, or the entire thing will fall apart. But okay. Bottom line here for everybody. Sorry, Tom, I'm kind of taking over here. Bottom line for everybody, but let's get this done. Assuming there is no limitations on money, on time, on confidence, what would you guys have in the game for DLC? Which character would you have in the game?
Ooh.
The one true Metal Sonic. Neo Metal Sonic. That's all I want. That's all
Curly Toes!
Curly Toes.
I would... Yeah, seriously, that's the best Metal Sonic. And I am the real Sonic. I'm going to whine at you.
You sound like Roz from Monsters, Inc.
Always watching, Sonic. Always watching.
Okay, I got mine if no one else is gonna go. So you already know I said Echo the Dolphin, but something else I want other than just characters is there's that little button at the bottom that says extra stages, and it's like there's the 2 outrun stages, but I just want at least one more stage, like racing, kart arena thing. And I know you're probably already guessed this, but I want an Echo the Dolphin one. If you think about it, the fact that it has time travel and it has all that stuff, you could have 3 different laps in 3 different eras, And
So you're saying you want an Echo the Dolphin stage?
Yes.
If you can't have an Echo the Dolphin race?
Yes.
That's an interesting idea, I must say.
Like the first stage could easily just be, it's all tropical and nice, and then, you cross the finish line. Well, there's that spinny DNA thing. You go back in time, and now there's like dinosaurs, there's horseshoe crabs, and all that awesome stuff. And then, for the last one, well, hey, last lap, aliens come down, they attack, and they might have to redesign the aliens, because if you've seen the aliens in Echo the Dolphin, they look exactly like the aliens from Alien, but,
The foe.
Yes. And it's like, I think that'd be such a cool idea, because everyone laughs. It's like, Echo the Dolphin, what type of game is that? Then I show them the final boss, and their mind is blown. If you, viewer, do not know about Echo the Dolphin, play it. It is not just a silly little dolphin game. It is badass. Ignore Defender of the Future, though.
It's badass if you can get past the first couple of levels without making you go insane.
Get the 3DS version with Super Dolphin mode.
Like, you have no idea where to go!
Actually, Tanner.
I've got one now.
Go on.
If stuff really is no object, then I want to see treasure characters in there. So, be that either Dynamite Heady or the Gunstar Heroes.
Oh, Dynamite Heady, I didn't even think about that!
Actually, why didn't we just look at the Sega Mega Drive Ultimate Collection, since there's tons of games on it?
But there's more ones. That one's a Mega Drive collection.
You've got to remember that they won't have rights to use some of the stuff on there anymore.
Like Fantasy Star. What about Altered Beast? That would be hilarious. All Star turns into a beast and runs. But that would have been the original. This one,
the problem with Altered Beast is it's the problem that it's always had is that everyone goes, "Oh, Altered Beast," and then they sit down and play it. Then they realise what an absolute pile of shite it is. Because it is.
I remember loads of people actually wanted a Vector Man to appear.
Vector Man would be cool.
Vector Man would be interesting from
a design point of view.
A design point of view. Actually, you could imagine Vector in the fighter. Vector Man.
No, Kev, you need Vector driving Vector Man.
Oh my god, that no, surely you would. Yeah, surely you would have Vector just driving a computer.
It's like an office
because he
desk
doesn't know
with a
where it
computer
is.
on it.
Oh, for my side, very quickly, what I would have.
Yeah, go on, Kevin.
Well, I've House of the Dead characters in some form. I'd like to see G and I always want to see G and Washington
Not
in
the
the ice
magician.
cream van.
And all
From
their lines
Overkill.
have to be
But-
horrible English as well.
Oh no! But Washington would have a big like plaster across his mouth and not be able to speak.
Kev, you know that they would realistically be a PC character only, and their all-star move would be typing of the dead S, where they've got to type a word on the keyboard while they're driving.
No, because you'd have it on Nintendo. You could have it on Nintendo. You could have it on Sony as well, because both of those the game has gone to both of those platforms. So it's something you could do. Or either that or Decap Attack, chuck the head.
Oh wow, that's old school. I mean,
I'd have.
last night I saw that. Obviously, other than the classic, well, the Mega Drive Ultimate Collection was actually from the original Sonic the Hedgehog comics.
And
Pretty
the other
sure.
one,
I'm
the other
pretty
one would
sure
be a-
that. No, never mind. Never mind.
Sorry, Joe, go on.
I was going to say, it wasn't Decap Attack sort of based on something else, though. It was another game entirely to begin with.
It was based on something else in Japan, I believe, because it came out with a completely different name.
And yet, from a track point of view, they can use whatever the heck they like from Outrun. So why not have the Outrun 2xe / Outrun Online Arcade have a straight path and go through like 4 or 5 of the specific key stages that everyone knows, and just have that as a track, or just do a straight race from A to B and just have that as an extra mode. If the entire basis of racing, much like as we were saying that Sega Superstars Tennis was based on Virtua Tennis, the initial aspect of racing was based on the Outrun engine because of the drift mechanic, and that was one of the reasons why it was very difficult to have Gilius in there. Actually, going back to that was because how do you get one of these lizards to drift? It's a bit tricky.
I remember that.
So why not? Just go there. I mean, it's very difficult to get stuff back for Outrun or do anything further with Outrun anyway because of the difficulties with the Ferrari license. You've got the assets. It looks damn pretty.
I'll tell
You
you
don't
what,
have to worry
Kev.
about anything like that, anything disconnections or anything you had with Outrun Online Arcade. Go
I'll
for
tell you
it.
what, Kev. If money was no object, I'd like Transform to play as it did when it was at SOS in Brighton, because it looked so much better there, where you actually had to charge up an all-star move.
I didn't play the game back in Brighton, but of course Pete was the gatekeeper. He was the keeper of the games back in Brighton, weren't you? So
Indeed. For those that aren't aware, there was a Transform played completely differently, whereas anybody could get an all-star move, but you got it via special things by doing tricks and drifting and overtaking and various other bits and pieces.
Yeah,
And
the coins that are now basically what you use for the slot machine was originally the concept for building up your
charging
all-star range.
Yeah.
So you were actually rewarded for skill.
Yes, you were.
And so they took away an aspect where it was rewarded for skill to make it more simplistic for the general.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which
Okay.
is...
I think, is there anything else anyone wants to cover quickly, or shall we call this a wrap?
I think we're just about done,
Yeah.
really. Unless
I think we've
anybody's
covered
got anything
everything.
specific to bring up. I mean, I'm looking forward to what we get in Transformed, in Lost World, and who knows? Maybe it's a growing trend that Sega are actually going to support their games with decent DLC. But I think if they do it right and continue the way they're going, they can make all of their games decent advertised juggernaut markets. And I'd still like to see some new games from these legacy characters that we keep seeing.
Indeed. Well, that wraps it up for this quite a long episode of Opinion Zone. But thank you, everyone that's came in. Thank you, Pete, for joining us for this special episode.
Thank you for inviting me.
That's okay. We'll be more than happy to have you back on the show for another topic sooner or later. Whenever we do one. It is.
6 months later.
In 2016. We'd like to thank also John for coming on, Tanner,
Yes.
and Kevin as always.
You're most welcome. Been fun.
That's good to hear. Now, obviously, we're going to sign off. Anyone that's enjoyed listening to this, if you've got any views yourself, feel free to post up on the Facebook chat page. Which is Facebook/The Sonic Show. And this has been Sonic Show. This has been our Opinion Zone. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Until next time.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
And that was the Sonic Show's Opinion Zone. Copyright Disco Ponies Productions. Sonic the Hedgehog is copyright Sega Corporation. Published material and comments are those of the respective persons and not of the Sonic Show. All rights reserved. Thanks for listening.
We were making up a fanfiction story, and then I started going on about how there was an evil Master Emerald called the Kaiser Emerald. It was a shame because it was really good, and then we lost it all because Donnie came in.
Damn it, Don.